Hello and welcome back to the Cricket Nerds. Today it is the cream of the crop, me and Zach, and we're going to be talking about
Nice.
two matches that happened today that were really good. There was New Zealand versus Ireland, which was, that was a match. It was a game of cricket, I guess. But then Australia versus Afghanistan. Oh, what a game. And yeah, we'll also talk about how this sets things up in Group 1 of the T20 World Cup. So a lot to talk about. Thank you so much for watching. That sounded like I was ending the video there.
Yeah, let's finish. That's it.
No, thank you for the continued support. Don't forget to like and subscribe. It really helps us grow this channel. So let's get into the first match that happened, which UK time started at like stupid o'clock. It was like 4 or something. And it was New Zealand versus Ireland. Now, this I feel like we're carrying on the whole people that like were kind of playing second fiddle and are now carrying on their like becoming good. Because you remember yesterday, right? We had Temba Bavuma and Quinton de Kock, the out of form captain and the blistering left arm opener that's in great touch. And you mentioned that I think, we're pretty sure that Temba said at the start, look, I'm just going to bat like you and you have to bat like me. I
Yeah.
think Kane Williamson also had that chat with Devon Conway.
Yeah, pretty much.
Because Devon Conway goes at less than a run a ball for his 28, a painstaking 28. And Kane Williamson, with a fiery knock of 61, not out, strike rate of 175. Thank you very much. What did you think of New Zealand's batting?
I thought it looked like they could get a lot more, especially the way Finn Allen started off and the way he was backed up by Kane Williamson, who then just took it to that next level. They were just firing along. I think Kane Williamson is an interesting one when it comes to 2020 cricket, because when he fires, it looks really good. And he can score at a quick strike rate. We normally associate Kane Williamson in 2020 cricket with being the anchor. That's the role he plays. And I think it's easy for us to look at it and be like, well, he shouldn't be in that side because he's had dodgy season in the IPLs of recent. But at the end of the day, he is one of the best batsmen in the world, and we can't take that away from him. He's been one of the most consistent performers in cricket. And so in 2020, he has all the shots. He's able to play all around the ground. And yeah, it was great to watch. And it was Daryl Mitchell at the end, which kind of, it was just putting pressure on the Irish fielders just constantly. He only hit 2 fours in his innings. And he scored 31 runs and he had a good strike. It was just pushing
really
those twos. And you get that in the Australian grounds are big, so you're going to get that. But Irish bowling, thoughts?
Where does it come from? That's what I want to know. Because to be, for me personally, the main bulk of the fun in this match happened in that first innings, because Irish bowlers, they've just come on so much. And I think we found this a little bit with a lot of the, I don't know, the nations that haven't been traditionally as big in cricket. So, we look at Ireland, we look at Zimbabwe. Who else? We've got Netherlands, got a very strong bowling attack. Even like Scotland, Bangladesh, like there are some really talented bowlers coming through. It's just the batting that lets these teams down. And for me, pick of the bowler today has to be Josh Little with a hat trick. Like there's something so viscerally impressive about getting 3 blokes out in a row. Just that conveyor belt, right? You're going out to bat, right? You're back in the shed. Just it's brutal, and you love to see it. I also thought Gareth Delaney did really well. So yeah, there's some real skill in Irish bowling. What were your opinions?
Well, I just want to focus on that hat trick because it wasn't the hat, because we talked about it in a previous video, actually, in a Cricket Nerds question about a hat trick's worth much in 2020 cricket, because sometimes it can be the team just slogging and then they lose their wickets. But his hat trick was really good bowling. Like when he got Kane Williamson out, He then trapped James Neesham LBW and bowled an even better ball to Mitch Santner to get him LBW. And it was just that feeling when you feel like you've earned a hat trick. It just must have been so good for him.
Yeah.
Only the second ever bowler in Irish history to get a 2020 hat trick. So well done to him. And Josh Little's become a reliable, consistent performer for Ireland. And it's not just reliable and consistent in terms of going at 8 and over and taking a wicket every game. He's consistently going at less than 6 and over and taking 2 or 3 wickets a game, which is just insane. I think every team would want Josh Little. He's probably been the best opening bowler throughout the whole tournament just because of how consistent he's been.
Do you think he's managed to get himself an IPL contract?
Well, who knows? I don't think he would because he's not played against India. And if you do well against India, that's normally a quick way of getting into the IPL.
Yeah.
But yeah, maybe. Who knows? I'm sure if he goes up for the auction, they might
love to see it. I would love to see it.
Great. I guess Australian conditions are different, aren't they? But there we go.
They are. They're quite seamer friendly, as we've seen. And going on to talk about one of the best seamers, one of the quickest, definitely, Lockie Ferguson in that that second innings. He was bowling some absolute smoke, and it was very fun. Lockie Ferguson, I think he's been really underrated in the past few years. Like he's been somebody that's kind of been a bit in and out of that New Zealand T20 side, and I think that's completely unjustified because he is really good all the time. Won the IPL with Gujarat Titans, and he's just consistently very, very useful. What did you think of? I mean, it was a brilliant all-round bowling performance. So we can come on to that in a minute. But what do you think of the Irish batsmen?
I think it's just a shame that they had such a good start. They had a solid platform to work from through Paul Stirling and Andy Balbirnie, and they didn't really capitalize on that because we've seen a lot of the Irish batsmen come into form in this tournament. Paul Stirling's been awesome. Andy Balbirnie's played some really good innings, and when you see them needing only about 120 runs off the last 15 overs, I think it was, or something like that. They had a lot of time to score those runs, and yet they weren't able to put it together, and they just lost wickets too quickly. But I think a lot of that comes down to how well Sodhi and Santner bowled in those middle overs. It just took it away from Ireland, and then Ferguson just wrapped it up. And I think going back to Ferguson, it's just his pace. He's kind of like a Mark Wood in that his role in the team isn't to necessarily contain, but it's to take wickets, and that's what he does best. And I think his pace was just too much for the Irish batsmen. But what was your opinions in terms of Santner and Sodhi?
I think they're again. I mean, it's kind of a New Zealand thing. They're so nice that they just fly under the radar and they get underrated. They don't kind of hype themselves up enough. And like Santner and Sodhi are both players that I don't think Sodhi's ever been in the IPL. Santner's been picked by Chennai and played like 2 games a season ever. I'm talking about the IPL because it is just like the be all and end all of T20 competitions. We all know that this T20 World Cup is a trial run for the IPL auctions coming up. And I thought they both bowled really well. They keep it tight and they ask the right questions when they're bowling. Their lengths tend to be immaculate, and that's what sets spin bowling apart. Because you look at some of the best bowlers in the world when they're on song. So I'm talking about Adam Zampa, Adil Rashid, Rashid Khan, Wanindo Hasaranga da Silva. They're all players that when they take the most wickets, you'll notice that the common theme is their length is just so uncomfortable for batsmen. They don't know whether to go forwards or back. And then it's doing so much. Like they've got really good googlies or flippers or top spinners or leg breaks. And it makes a huge difference. And Ish Sodhi and Mitch Santner both I mean, they do slightly different things, obviously, but I just thought they performed their roles exactly right, and it just made for an all-round very good performance from New Zealand. And they were constantly punctuating the Irish inning with wickets, and that's how you really slow down momentum.
Yeah, definitely. They just made it too difficult for Ireland to catch up. I think Ireland, after that opening partnership, you would have thought, yeah, they're in with a chance now. They could get close, but those wickets throughout the middle order and that slowing down the game just really pulled it back, and it was just too much for Ireland at the death to win the game. Should we move on then to the game that was unexpectedly a nail biter between Australia and Afghanistan? And it started off with the Australians absolutely punishing the Afghanistan bowlers. And it caused a bit of, not controversy, that's not the right word. There was a bit of discussion at the start because Australia decided to not play their captain.
Yeah.
What's that about?
So 3 players were dropped. Aaron Finch and Tim David were both supposedly due to injury. But realistically, we all know that somebody just booted Aaron Finch in the shin so he wouldn't have to play again. So, you know, those 2 were swapped out for injury. So Cameron Green and Steve Smith come in as replacements. And then the really interesting one was the dropping of Mitchell Stark, who, as far as we're aware, had no injury at all. And he was dropped and Kane Richardson came in. So, I mean, we can go on to the bowling a bit later, but just from a selection standpoint, that one raised the most eyebrows, I think, because going into the match, there are various figures that have been flying around. Some saying that Australia needed to bowl out Afghanistan for under 106-ish. Others saying it was 116 or even more. But after Australia got their total, they needed to really limit Afghanistan, and they knew they needed to win by quite a big margin anyway to get their net run rate higher than England's to qualify, should England beat Sri Lanka. But yeah, they didn't pick one of their best power play bowlers, and that was quite surprising to me because surely if you're going to try and skittle a team for 100, you need some power play wickets. So that was an interesting one. Don't know what that's all about.
I don't know if it might be a classic Australian thing to see Afghanistan and just think, oh, we'll easily beat Afghanistan. And we know it's down to, at the end of the day, it's down to England versus Sri Lanka. Let's just rest some of our players up. But
it was still like they needed to win by a lot.
Yeah, they did.
And they knew that, surely. So it was very odd. But going into the actual innings, you're right. They took the game to Afghanistan. And I mean, I've got to say, the 2 seamers, Faruqi and Naveen-ul-Haq, they really showed their worth today. Faruqi picking up that big first wicket of Cameron Green, who, I mean, this is his first game he's played in the T20 World Cup, but he has shown his promise in T20 games beforehand. And I think really Australia see him as like a potential superstar. And I mean, I'm sure we'll see him in the IPL at some point.
Yeah, most likely.
My favourite wicket was David Warner's, getting bowled by Naveen-ul-Haq, where Warner was just, I don't know what was happening. I think he just felt like he was being too good as a left-hander, so wanted to give the Afghanistan bowlers a chance, and switched to right-handers. And David Warner is somebody that has played good switch hits in the past, but he switched, and then it was like an off-cutter on leg stump, and he plays the most awkward-looking attempt at a cover drive and gets bowled through the gate, and it's quite funny.
I would argue that's actually really clever bowling from Naveen-ul-Haq, just to watch that little change, that subtle change, and then just make the adjustment. And yeah, it was really clever. And he was the pick of bowlers for me. He looked really good, really solid. And a lot of the time for Afghanistan, we talk about Rashid Khan and we talk about Mohammad Nabi and Majib and their spinners, and we don't normally talk about how good that their entire bowling is. They've got some really good bowlers, and not to be underestimated, which I feel like the Aussies did. I
Mm,
feel like the Aussies would be like, who is this Afghanistan? Like, they're not going to beat us.
yeah.
But they still won. But it was close. And a shout out to RCB man, Glenn Maxwell, the big show, making his name in the 2020 World Cup, which he doesn't always perform the consistently for Australia like he does for, say, the Melbourne Stars or for Royal Challengers. And I think Australia will want to see more from him, because if he fires, then that is a massive thing for Australia. If he plays really well consistently, then Australia can say thank you again for the tournament, and win it. But in terms of Afghanistan's batting, it seemed like it was all over for Afghanistan when they were about 100 for 6 off 14 overs. And then I'll let you talk about it. Dirty wrists, Rashid Khan.
Honestly, he's brilliant. So yeah, from the start, like I thought Gurbaz, Ibrahim Zadran got Zadran, sorry, got them off to a very good start. Gurbaz looked brilliant, even though he'd like injured his shoulder straight away or something. Golba did Nabe, somebody I've not really seen a whole lot of. He was class. He was really good. But yeah, Rashid Khan, oh, those elastic wrists. He was brilliant. And he really took Afghanistan deep. It looked like he could have done it. I think they needed 3 sixes off the last 3 balls. First ball he hits for a 6. It was beautiful. And then the second ball, he just hits into kind of no man's land, lands for 2. And that was a little disappointing. But overall, as an innings, 48 off 23. It's what he offers at kind of that number 8, number 9 position. He's a sink or swim kind of player. He will either do really well or he'll get a golden duck. But that flash in the pan can take you over the line. And
oh yeah,
is there anybody that you can get behind more than Rashid Khan? He's the most likable person ever.
Yeah. It's the fact that he's like 24. It's insane, isn't it? It's just like he looks about 50, but he's got the wrists of a 24-year-old. And well, that makes sense because he's 24. But yeah, it's just ridiculous. But yeah, I'd say that Rashid Khan's had a bit of a quiet tournament, hasn't he? He's not with the ball. He's not really. A lot of people normally talk about him, and everyone just decides, okay, we're never going to play Rashid Khan, so we'll just try our best to survive. And yeah, he's had a bit of a quiet tournament, not taking all the wickets that we were expecting. But with the bat today, he proved his worth in another way. I think Afghanistan over the last 10 years in cricket are the most improved. And I think people are starting to not underestimate them, because you can't underestimate Afghanistan anymore. I'd love to see a 2020 series, Afghanistan versus Bangladesh, like a 5-match series. I feel like that would be quite close.
7, make it 7.
7-match,
yeah,
23-match series.
Let's
between
do it.
Afghanistan.
Get it sorted out.
But yeah, because I feel like that would be quite close. So yeah, they're doing really well. Tomorrow we have the best game that everyone's been hyping up since the word go. Netherlands versus South Africa. No, England versus Sri Lanka. Tomorrow, 8:00 in the morning, England time. It's gonna be squeaky bum time from the word go.
It is,
because it's must win.
I'm absolutely terrified of those Sri Lankan bowlers. I'm not gonna lie. Like Hasaranga just hitting form. Theekshana being amazing. I think they could run through England, or England could breeze it, or what's most likely, it'll be a horrendous experience for an England fan, and it'll just be like the most tense thing you've ever seen, and we'll just about scrape it, or we lose by the barest of margins. So yeah, I'm looking forward to it, and I'm also not. But what you can look forward to is our coverage, and you know what? That leads us on to our one cricket nerds question, which was actually a hate comment to me. Rajesh asked, You call yourself cricket nerds, but you don't know the full form of DLS. I forgot the name Stern in DLS.
And you also called him Douglas, not Duckworth.
Did I call it Douglas?
Yeah.
Oh no, that's even more embarrassing. Why should people subscribe to this channel? Thank you for your question, Rajesh. The answer is we are doing continuous and consistent, beautiful coverage of this brilliant game called cricket. And join us, become a cricket nerd, subscribe, and you'll be along for the ride. And it's all a bit of fun. So don't take anything we say too seriously. I'm sorry for saying Douglas
Lewis.
Legolas something as yeah. So thank you so much for watching. You can check out our social medias down in the description. Also, links to our various audio podcast sites are on there. Other than that, don't forget to subscribe. Thank you so much, and we'll see you later.